This is one of my favorite finishing touches because once you get the idea, it's pretty simple to do. It almost seems like I'm going to be kidding when I'm going to suggest you do this, but it really makes a difference. And I'll tell you a quick story about how effective this method can be. I used to work at the National Association of Photoshop Professionals and worked with some top Photoshop experts and instructors. And we were working on a couple of projects jointly, and I did some work on compositing. And some of these experts were like, holy smokes, Dave, that's like some of the best hair extraction I've ever seen. And I just smiled and went, okay, thanks, and then showed them this trick, and they went, oh, what a cool idea. And the idea is this. As we've seen before, one of the hardest things to deal with is hair. And here you can see it's actually done a really nice job. And I've zoomed in closer than I probably need to show you this. But there's still a few places here and there where it doesn't look quite as realistic. And rather than, using my favorite term, obsessing over this, here's what I would do instead. Add a new layer, and I'm going to take my paintbrush, and all I'm going to do is choose a hard brush, and I'm going to make it very small, like 2 pixels, which is really small. And it looks like that. In fact, let me go undo that, and I'm just going to make it 3 pixels, just to help you see a little bit. Now keep in mind, I'm zoomed in a little closer, but you don't have to zoom in too close or else you'll start worrying too much about all the little details. Now, you could do this with a Wacom pen, but really you don't need to because of the way we're going to do this. So the setting we want to use, I'm going to move our view over here. So I'm going to work over on this side here. And initially I'm painting with black so I can see it more easily. But what I do is I go to our brushes here where we can choose the settings for our brush. And one of them is called Shape Dynamics. And the control we're going to use is called Fade. And this is a really kind of weird concept because almost everything else in Photoshop is measured in pixels or something like that. Well, here, Fade is measured in this very hard to understand unit of measurement called steps. So what does that mean? Right now it's set to 25 steps. So you can see when I do that, it fades out really quickly. There's a little preview down here at the bottom, but I prefer to see it on the screen. So I find that's too much too quickly. So I undo that, and let's try 80. And try that. That's a little better, but that's almost a little too slow. So I'm going to try something, and I don't have any magic number here. I'm just trying things, and each time I'm just doing a brush stroke. I think I like that. 65 looks pretty good. Now, this doesn't mean you should use 65. You should try it like this. Make a new layer. Don't worry about the color for now. Try different fades amount, and each time do a couple of strokes and then go, all right, now that I know that's going to work, all right, now we're set to go. I'm going to be painting on this layer. Before I start painting, I want to check my settings. I'm at normal. Let's put the opacity back to 100%. And then all I do is that same technique we did before. Hold down Option or Alt, click to sample the color, and then paint a little bit of hair. And I'm trying to follow the same basic look. In other words, I wouldn't want to stick a hair out sideways because that would look a little odd. But all I'm doing is just periodically going in here and just adding a few little hairs. Now keep in mind we're zoomed in pretty close. But all I'm doing repeatedly here, sample a color, paint a little bit. You can also follow along hairs that are already there. So if you want to accentuate something that you see, that one wasn't quite so good. I usually like to start inside the hair to make sure I'm getting some kind of overlap. Like in here, let's pick this color and just kind of add on a little bit. Again, I would remind you we're zoomed in pretty close, but when you see this at the actual size, this little finishing touch really makes an amazing difference. So let's go back a little bit. See, all it's doing is kind of fooling your eye a little bit to thinking you've got a better job. Whenever you're working with brushes and you find some fade amount, you always have the option of creating a new brush preset so you don't have to do this over again. You could do that. Frankly, I usually don't because the fade amount varies so dramatically with your subject and the distance and all that kind of stuff. But using that method, small little brush, fade amount set appropriately, paint on a new layer, making sure you're sampling the color, it can make a huge difference in fooling people and making it look more believable.